It's time for Supply Chain Now Radio. Broadcasting live from the supply chain capital of the country, Atlanta, Georgia. Supply Chain Now Radio spotlights the best in all things supply chain. The people, the companies, the technologies, the best practices, and the critical issues of the day. Now, here are your hosts.
Hey, good morning. Scott Luton here with you live once again on Supply Chain Now Radio. Welcome back to the show. We're coming to you today from Vector Global Logistics, a company that's providing world-class logistics services, all while deeply investing into the communities that they serve. Based here in Atlanta, but with an international reach, this company is on the move. You can learn more at vectorgl.com. Today's show is all about the trucking industry, as we give pause to celebrate National Truck Driver Appreciation Week. We're going to be celebrating the contributions to supply chain and the business industry by 3.5 million professional men and women that make supply chains and business happen. Quick programming note, like all of our series on Supply Chain Now Radio, you can find our replays on a variety of channels, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, and wherever else you find your podcasts. As always, we'd love to have you subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Supply Chain Now Radio is also brought to you by a variety of sponsors, including the Effective Syndicate, Talent Stream, Verison, Apex Atlanta, and several other leading organizations. Be sure to check out the show notes to learn more about our valuable sponsors. Okay, so let's welcome in my co-host once again today, Greg White, co-host here at Supply Chain Now Radio and serial and serious supply chain tech entrepreneur and a trusted advisor. Greg, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you. Serious, huh?
Maybe Antonym Day, right?
Yeah. Well,
great to have you back. We've been on a string of some really neat shows. This is a topic that I think we published episode 152 here recently, and truck drivers and transportation has hit a lot of those episodes.
Yeah, no doubt.
A lot of important things going on. Of course, it's a critical part of supply chain, and we love celebrating the people that make that happen.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay, and we've got two great featured guests and really industry thought leaders here with us today. Frank Hurst, president of Roadrunner Freight. Frank, how you doing?
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Great to have you back here today. And Paige Siplon, old friend of the show, industry stalwart, CEO of TeamOne Logistics. How you doing, Paige?
Outstanding. Thanks for having us.
Great to have you back. You know, when you made your appearance on the show about a year, I know a couple of them, but one of them ranks top 10 all time in terms of
expect nothing less, right?
You are an incredible draw.
Wow.
He's an
you
engine.
Did not know that.
Now
You're
you
setting a
completely
high
jinxed
bar.
us. Yeah, I did.
I got to set some expectations. Now, I think that's testament to your passion for industry and passion for what you're doing here and your make it happen persona, which is really important. We love
thanks.
deeds, not words. Yeah. So, but looking forward to Frank and Paige weighing in on a variety of industry topics, including, of course, all about truck drivers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so Greg, before we get into our interview with Frank and Paige.
Hey, I'm willing to
Making
take
an
his
impact
part.
already,
Yeah.
right? You forgot my name. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
So, Greg, we want to cover some of the top things known in supply chain now. So, Greg, what's been on your radar here?
Well, we said it a little bit, but hey, let's say it again. It is National Truck Driver Appreciation Week, sponsored by the American Trucking Associations, celebrating those folks that make sure we get it, literally get stuff. So, we talk a lot about last mile and goods and storage and things moving, but these are the people steering the wheel, hitting the gas and brakes, thankfully, to get it here. Right?
That's right.
And some amazing skills. I don't know if this is no joke. I don't know if you ever watched any of these truck driving videos. People with tandem trailers and slipping into a parking spot you couldn't get a Camry in. It's amazing the skills of these folks.
It is.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that in light of how hard the rest of the driving community makes it challenging, right?
Yeah. Guilty as charged. Four-wheelers, as we call them.
Yes,
That's right.
I've been there. I've
The
slipped in there
non-professional.
maybe a little bit late once or twice. Yeah, sorry, by the way, to the truck driving world. I do owe some apologies.
Yes. We all do.
And then one other tidbit. So just recently, Bloomberg said that the U.S. truck driver shortage is on course to double in a decade. So not only is there a shortage, so let's see, the numbers they quoted were the deficit swelled to 60,800 and just fell just slightly this year to about 59,000 drivers needed versus jobs available. So the fact that we expect it to double in a decade, I don't know. I mean, I'm not educated enough. I'd love to hear from you guys on that topic.
I mean, they say that if that shortage and the trend continues, and I don't think it'll continue at that pace, but if it continues, you're going to be 150, 160,000 drivers short. You know, you look at the impact it makes on our businesses now and what it's going to do if you're that kind of short 10 years from now. Even if it would be a lot different, but...
Right. I think if you think about whether it's a shortage or demand really of a professional truck driver, that's always going to be there. I mean, drivers really are the heartbeat of transportation, right?
Yeah. Trucks bring it, as they say.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, and we're adding warehouses at an incredible pace. Every one of those is a stop for a truck.
That's right.
Right. So that matters. And to your point, Frank, the skill level. So in previous companies, we've had distributors and retailers as customers, some who have their own trucking fleet. And it wasn't just whether they could get truck drivers, it was whether they could keep them. Mm-hmm. It was also whether they could keep the drivers with the skills that they needed, right? So,
the other thing I would say, we talk about truck driver appreciation, and I sort of definitely have a passion. You know, we have almost 1,000 drivers around the country now, and we appreciate them not just for, not to pick on you, Greg, but you talked about the skills they have. Yeah. And I think part of the problem we have that we'll probably talk about today is, what do truck drivers do? And I think part of the issue about why there's a shortage is we have a problem of perception. Yes. And I won't go into it now, but the word driver is, they are professional and they're trained and they're safe and they've got incredible skills to use the wheel and the gas and thankfully the brakes. Yeah. But there's so much more than that. And we really don't take this the right way. We don't appreciate them only for their skills of driving and steering the wheel and pushing the gas. We appreciate for all the other stuff they do that frankly is lost. You know, a lot of those drivers is the only face that our customers will see. So their sales, their customer service. Sometimes they're, doing accounts receivable or just a variety of things. I know Frank's company's the same way.
Solving problems.
Yeah, that's a great point. Our customers tell us all the time, you can change an account executive, you can change your service, but don't change the drivers. That's how important they are to their business.
The front line. So that word driver is, again, take that with a grain of salt. They are much more. They're more freight navigation engineers, in my opinion. Wow. They do so much.
That's
right?
so hard to say.
Transportation.
It's not to catch you. I don't think it's going to catch on, but
that's why we have to go with driver.
But we appreciate them a lot more than just steering the wheel.
Right. Agreed.
It's true, and that breadth of skills is what makes it such a difficult market.
That's right. Exactly.
I mean, you're not just looking for somebody. I could steer a truck. Sure. I probably couldn't back a truck, but you're looking for somebody who has those kind of skills in addition to that, right? Yeah. So I got to ask you guys this. So there's this, I don't know how big of a debate, but if you were to Google national or if you were to Google truck driver shortage, the second most highest trending search that comes up is myth. So tell me about that. I mean, these numbers are well researched, right? But
sure. Well, I think some of that research is a little suspect because for those who do it, I mean, the federal government's great and they have some great tools and resources, but being granular and business friendly is not exactly their strong suit sometimes. So, I think Frank said it before. There is such a huge demand. So put whatever word you want in front of it, whether it's shortage or demand or supply, or there's a huge need out there for safe, qualified, professional drivers. So, I think there's definitely in our business, and I know Frank's too, in trucking in particular, there's huge need for that because it impacts so many other kinds of businesses. Yeah, it is really the bottom. The common denominator of our freight economy for sure. I would say the broader economy too.
That's having a driver really is about creating capacity, whether it be in a local market or over the road as well. So as long as you've got the capacity, you continue to grow overall. So as long as there's a shortage of drivers that are out there that are today, there's always going to have to be a focus on retention and proper recruitment and so forth.
Yeah, and capacity it definitely impacts where people's opinions are on the driver shortage. If there's too much capacity available or not enough capacity, the truck sitting empty is also a driver not driving it. Yeah. So it fluctuates just with market demands as well. So.
I'm gonna state the obvious. Talking about misperception, right? You think of when you pull into the old banks where they had the pipes, right, and they put something in, they pressed a button, and it went exactly where it needed without anyone really thinking. Well, I think one of the luxuries that make our drivers, our trucking professionals, insert whatever word there, so valuable is that they are making a variety of decisions that impact the mission and the calls and the delivery. And if they're flying through Wichita, where in Wichita gets traffic get hanged up?
Highway 54.
Okay, well that becomes
on your way to Liberal, Kansas.
Yeah, so if that has a snafu on Thursday afternoon, they're a lot of times proactively problem solving because they have to because of the hours of service to make sure that snafu on Highway 54
US
in
54.
Wichita doesn't slow everything down, and that there's so much value in that ability to kick off the shipment, but have a very knowledgeable and skilled and experienced problem solver in that cab that's going to be averting some of the fires that could pop up, because we know in supply chain we got plenty of fires every day.
Scott, that's a great point. I mean, if you think about, they've got to be a student of our industry. They have to know the regulations and new rules and requirements. But also, you think of the technology that we've employed just in the past few years, having to be able to operate that technology overall is how important that is in recruiting the right type of driver.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost expected now. I mean, we talk about how we get younger folks in our industry. It's part of the problem that plagues our industry is we have an older demographic. And so, you get some of these younger folks in there that want to join our industry. One, the perception we've talked about a little bit, but then also they want to have that iPad app, or they want to have the technology. They don't want to be handed paper logs, right? That's what my grandfather did. Where's the app that I can navigate this? How am I going to maximize the amount of money I'm going to make in these trips? And it's just sort of price of entry.
Yeah, the cool thing is, and we'll touch on that. I don't want to get ahead of any other news that you might have.
No.
Okay,
no,
cool.
That's it. Let's go.
So we're going to dive right in.
Let's take it.
But one last note, and we'll circle back to this after we learn more about Frank and Paige, is that truck drivers, transportation professionals, again, whatever that right term is, it's becoming more and more like every role, more of a technology role, right?
That's right.
I heard someone put it really well when we're talking about some of the healthcare shortages that we have, especially in the nursing profession. And this gentleman was making a point. Hey, it's no longer a traditional nurse. That's a technologist that is driving technology as much as they're providing patient care. And we've got to work hard to get that right message out there to the front end of the pipeline. I think very similar challenge as it relates to this industry as well. Okay, so with all that said, I'll tell you, we jumped right in today, didn't we? I think everybody had the coffee.
I mean,
which
how was the coffee? Did anyone try?
Fantastic.
Was it good? Good.
Our coffee sponsor, Vector Global Logistics. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
All right, so let's before we dive more into industry insights and thought leadership here, let's get to know both Frank Hurst and Paige Siplon a little bit better. So, Frank, let's start with you. Tell us more about yourself and kind of your professional journey, and then, of course, tell us more about Roadrunner.
Yeah, great. Thanks. So I grew up in Paragould, Arkansas, a small town in eastern Arkansas, and went to school at the University of Arkansas. So go Hogs.
Go Hogs.
There you go.
And upon graduating with the transportation logistics major, started with a small regional company called American Freightways, which we were later purchased by FedEx Freight. And so traveled all over the country with those two great companies overall. And since I was with a company called Vitran Express, which we later sold. And then I've been at Roadrunner now for the past 2.5 years. And in my current role the last 2 years.
So current role as president of the organization. Before we learn more about what Roadrunner does, is there one thing in particular that, and when you think of your priority stamp on the organization or your priority value, what kind of impact are you looking to make in your leadership role at Roadrunner?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I think really for us, it's about how do we impact our customers by providing reliable on-time service to them, but also making sure that we are paying close attention to our internal customers as well. Because I'm truly one that believes that, our independent contractors and employees, they have to come to work every day excited to be there so they can take care of our customers. Right. And as we do those things, then we'll grow as a company and organization overall.
That's great.
Yeah, that internal customer, I love that phrase. I think oftentimes that gets lost in the shuffle, even in the war for talent era that we're in. Tell us more about Roadrunner, what it does.
Sure. So we Roadrunner Freight is the less than truckload arm of Roadrunner Transportation Systems. So we've got two main companies. We have a company called Expedited Freight Systems, which is a regional 6-state LTL provider based out of Kenosha, Wisconsin. And then Roadrunner Freight is the long-haul metro-to-metro service provider. We have 19 facilities across the United States, one of the top 20 LTL providers in the U.S.
Wow. I see the trucks everywhere. I mean,
they are.
Yeah, they are all over the place. So,
absolutely.
So Roadrunner itself has multiple entities, right? I think
Yes,
Intermodal is based here in Atlanta.
Yes, sir, correct.
Right, and so was that has it always been separate business units like that, or is that a fairly recent change? Or
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you go back and think of Roadrunner in our infancy, we were the LTL organization. And over a period of time, we purchased a lot of small companies. In the last couple of years under new leadership, we've really worked to build 3 main verticals in our business overall. We have a Ascent Global Logistics group, as well as Truckload and Expedite, and then we have our LTL arm as well.
Got it. Okay.
So we go to market really as 3 separate companies, but and with professional logistics, truckload, as well as LTL's offerings.
Well, switching gears a little bit here, I want to bring Paige Siplon back into the conversation, CEO of TeamOne Logistics. So, Paige, before we talk about TeamOne,
Sure.
Let's talk about your background.
Yeah. So I've spent about a dozen years in the Marine Corps and the Air Force. I joke that I was cargo for a while, being shipped around, and not very efficiently, I would add. And so I did secure data systems and cryptography type work for the Marine Corps and the Air Force for again about 12 years, and then left there, went to Georgia Tech, got a computer engineering degree. I swear I'll get to the logistics part in a minute. Computer engineering degree, got a master's degree in computer engineering, and really just a problem solver. I mean, that's really where it comes back into the logistics side. And then ran a consulting company essentially for the state of Georgia for over a decade, and helped shape, from an economic development perspective, helped companies figure out why Georgia was a great place to do business.
And was it
from a transportation perspective?
I know you won't brag on you, but
Yeah.
you were a trailblazer in that regard. I mean, you really changed. There's a reason why I think Georgia's celebrating 6 years in a row as the best state to do business.
Yeah,
And
transportation is a big part of that.
Yeah, that's right. And
Yeah.
you think of some of the a short list of reasons why that we're seeing that today is a lot of y'all's work y'all were doing that you were leading when you were so deeply involved in economic development.
Well, thank you. I mean, it was the industry's work. I mean, we just shined a light on it, right, and used that as our asset and our tools to help businesses create opportunities here. Plants like Kia and Home Depot expanding, and just you go down the list, and the number of Fortune 500 companies that are here in just the Metro Atlanta area alone. Not to add the I won't get in my Georgia soapbox, but the Ports Authority is one of the fastest growing in the country, and on and down the list. It was an easy job to have, and be able to market that and sell it and create jobs and investment for the state of Georgia, and get some really great relationships with companies and private businesses around the country, really, and here in Georgia in particular.
Absolutely. And it's tough. It's tough not to get on that Georgia soapbox, and we try to make this really a global show.
It's easier for Frank.
Go Hogs.
That's right.
But there's so much really neat things that are going on here that folks
Sure.
come here to benchmark. A lot of it related to the end-to-end supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, it is about the global economy these days. It is about how Georgia can contribute to that, as well as the regional economy, the national economy.
Yeah, that's what supply chains are all about.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
connecting all those dots, and Georgia just happens to be one of those places that we have a great corner store location here in the East Coast, and it's a hub not just for Georgia, but for really the globe. And that's why TeamOne Logistics is here, right? That I'm CEO. I joined back in 2015. We've been in business for about 15 years, founded in 2003, as an opportunity to work with companies. We now have, just shy of 1,000 employees. 90% of them are commercial, safe, qualified, professional drivers that we appreciate very much.
There you
right?
go.
And
Good timing.
But we do that in 43 states around the country, working with partners, companies similar to Frank's, and asset-based providers all over the country that we work with. So that's, certainly being in Georgia, we're in north of Atlanta now, but that's where our headquarters is. But again, a great corner store location for us to be.
That's great.
And that coverage, that national coverage, has continued to grow dramatically. 43 states now.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, we run out of states at some point, right? Still trying to figure out Hawaii, but that's
how
sort
do
of
you get a truck there?
closed loop.
Right,
I don't know if Frank's got business in Hawaii, but we're trying to figure that one out.
so I think y'all have done really well, especially an executive summary of kind of painting a picture of who you are and what your organizations do. So, Greg, I know one of the hot questions, burning questions that we want to ask about is finding drivers, right?
Yeah. I mean, so one of the questions that I think a lot of people are asking is and we alluded to this earlier, but maybe relay your own personal experiences. What makes finding drivers so difficult?
I mean, the first part is just the quantity, right? I mean, we talk about the shortage, and that is a true fact, and it's not. It's finding the drivers that fit the needs that we have as businesses, and frankly, more importantly, that fit the needs that they want to do. Right, our industry is also plagued with a lot of turnover, and that turnover is driven by there's a lot of large over-the-road truckload companies that put wrong people in the wrong seats, right, and and they've built their business models around it. And I know Frank's is different than that. Mine is certainly different than that. But so finding people that really fit the needs, it's not a needle in a haystack, but it seems like that sometimes, right? Finding the right person for the right job that meets our business needs, but also meets their family needs is really key. It makes them excited, as Frank said, to come to work every day and do the job that they were hired to do. Is difficult. And that's not a TeamOne problem or a Roadrunner problem. That's an industry problem, and it's not new.
Yeah, I think the other thing is to really understand why is it hard to find drivers. It's, I was very fortunate early in my career that with American Freightways, where I learned to drive a forklift and got a CDL and drove a truck. And so, not only understanding with the physical demands of the job, but also the mental fatigue and demands of the position, of not only of understanding regulations as well as safety and operating equipment up and down the road, but being away from your family and your friends and holidays and so forth. So I think there's a lot of demand on the drivers overall. And so as our organizations, we have to understand how do we better facilitate not only communication but retention and work to appreciate the drivers that and what they go through on a day-in-day basis.
Yeah, we like to say we never really stop recruiting, even when they come to work for us, right? You've got to continue to recruit them. We call it retention at some point, right?
Sure.
But you really got to be recruiting them all the time. And their needs change, and there's still a lot of folks that want to be out on the road and maybe don't have that family connection, and they want to be the cowboys, right? And be out on the road, being road warriors, and that's
and they are. I mean, it's
but not all the jobs are like that.
Everything that I've read has said that loneliness or solitude, whatever you want to call it, is probably the biggest. It's probably the biggest impact on the driver, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's
especially
difficult.
in this connected day and age.
Yeah.
But going back, empathy comes to mind. I mean, and that's, of course, we need more empathy universally. But for this role that has for as long as we've had wheels, has made business and commerce and supply chain happen. Being a little more empathetic about what these drivers encounter, day in and day out. I think we could all probably do a better job of that.
I would tell you, just as a public safety note, and we joked about four-wheelers before, but we can all, anybody listening, right, we all drive cars. Right. Even the truck drivers have their own cars, but as you're on the road, give them some room. I mean, we see them, if you're not in the industry like Frank and I are, you might get frustrated when you see trucks on the road because they take up more space. Okay, well, they're doing a job, they're working. You're not when you're trying to get to your job. But give them space. I mean, I always try to give them a little bias, obviously, but I always try to give a little extra room or let that truck come in because they're working and just give them, and everybody listening can do that. I mean, it's a simple thing.
Practical empathy. Love it.
Yeah,
Coined a new phrase there.
I always tell my wife, I said the safest time to travel is at night on the road with the truck drivers because they're professional drivers.
They are.
It's a lot more safe to be on the road with professional drivers than being in Chicago at 8 o'clock in the morning in rush hour. That's for sure.
Bunch of rookies. Yeah, great point.
It's a lot safer for you to give them room also. Yeah. I mean,
that's right.
They can't stop quickly. I've experienced it only just from towing a boat, right? Yeah. I mean, I think more people should have to experience. I think if more people experience what it's like to really tow something.
Yeah. And it's also, I mean, your word empathy is a great one, but it's also respect. I mean, the reason they're doing what they're doing is for you, right? I mean, milk just doesn't magically show up at your grocery store. Trucks bring it, right? I mean, your furniture, pick a product, a truck is bringing it. Yeah. Period. Railroads play a big role too, but those trucks are those last mile, and so that truck is bringing something for you or your family or one of your loved ones. Let them do it. Give them some room. Make it easier for them.
Those plaid socks you just had to have in 2 hours.
Yeah, that's right.
So if not for their safety or your safety, for the safety of your 70-inch television because it's football season.
Or the price of that 70-inch television.
Oh,
right?
That's a good one.
Right. That's right.
All right, so y'all touched on this a little bit already, but just to, I think there's a couple of things we could probably add to the list. So what are these driving professionals looking for in a job, in an employer?
Yeah, what gets them and keeps them?
I think a driver's looking for the same thing that everyone else is looking for in a company, right? Honest, trustworthy leadership, solid communication, and I think a growing business with a vibrant culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would use the word culture is huge for us. I mean, that's something we really thrive on and work hard to continue. And again, like Frank's company, located around the country, and lots of moving parts, and drivers are unique because they're sort of moving parts inside of moving parts, right? So they're hard to keep connected to. But so making efforts as leaders of companies to try to build that culture and maintain it and grow the business is really key.
Is there anything you can share that you're doing that you feel like you have or are doing now that's really exceptional from a culture standpoint?
One of the things that we do is not only do all of our drivers have a direct line to me. I mean, whether it be email or my cell phone, and I get a lot of phone calls. And
wow, that's bold.
It is, but what I found is that our drivers are very respectful. But when they call, they typically need something or have a great suggestion or idea. The other thing is we do have round tables at least 4 times a year where we bring drivers in from all over parts of the country, and we talk about safety programs. We talk about tire, fuel, and maintenance programs that we have, as well as new contracts, compensation, and so forth. And it's great, really. It's really a good 2 days to have those drivers in and really talk about the experiences they have and how we can better shape the culture in our business overall.
That's great. Quick sidebar. I'd love to talk further. We'd love to get some of what that valuable conversation is out for public consumption. I can only imagine how that could help shape the narrative, the false narrative that's out there about the driving community. So we'll have to talk more about that. So let's we're kind of straddling the line between recruiting and retention, and clearly some of the things y'all have already shared around culture and leadership. Not only does it help you recruiting, but it certainly helps retain. But what else when we talk about retaining, keeping the drivers you have? Because unfortunately, like every other role in industry, there is turnover. Turnover exists, and every company's trying to, not just find the talent, but they've got to develop the talent so they can keep the talent and develop it and do some other things to make sure it stays a viable, enjoyable, successful place to work. Right. So when we talk about keeping drivers and protecting these resources, what else are we doing? What else are y'all seeing companies do?
I think part of it is just basic blocking and tackling. That would be true for any business. I mean, Frank mentioned that before. I mean, you want a good place where you want to come to work, but I think it's also listening. The communication is key because inherently we're going to have turnover. It's a tough job, right? And it doesn't last as long. Some want to be in it for a long time, but you got to listen to their needs as their needs change. Being able to find the right home time, being able to find the right wages. Sometimes those are connected. Different kinds of jobs pay different things. And so listening to what their needs are as those change of your employees and doing it en masse is difficult, but worth the juice is worth the squeeze, as they say. But then I'd also say, looking at things that aren't necessarily transportation related, but that impact those families is things like healthcare, things like, the rates of some of the insurances that they have to carry if you're an independent contractor or an owner operator, the work comp coverage, those kind of things can get very, very expensive very, very quickly, and are impacted by the four-wheelers not giving enough room on the street, not to bring it back home. But
glad he pointed at you when he said that.
Yeah, I did too. Not intended.
Thanks for taking the pressure off.
But yeah, I mean, how do you control healthcare and work comp? That's a whole nother discussion. But it really revolves around having people that really feel like they're part of something, and more importantly, want to be part of that something, because then they're going to be better consumers of the healthcare system and be able to help keep our costs low, be able to take better care of the equipment they're driving and be more safe. All the training that we go through, whether DOT required or not, being able to adhere to those rules, because the safety procedures that we all have in place are there for a reason, and not just for their own safety and the safety and well-being of their families, but also to control our costs. And those things, if we can control those costs, potentially be able to put more money back in their pockets as wages. And it's all connected. But you got to have people that really feel like they're part of that, not just there for a paycheck, which is difficult.
It's funny. We survey our drivers at orientation, and many ways to contact them is once they're driving for us. But the thing that we spend a lot of money on advertisement for recruiting, but the one thing that comes back is that the number one reason that they hear about our company is through word of mouth and their other friends. And so it really speaks about the importance of the culture internally, and what are we doing to make sure they're maximizing their miles and reducing their downtime. But as Paige speaks about, also it's the influence at home. How do we get those drivers back on the weekends and back in time so they can spend valuable time with their families?
Yeah, I've heard it. I've heard drivers talking to one another at a pilot or Flying J or whatever, right? I mean, they do that. It's just like any other job, right? Like everybody says.
Especially with social media. I mean, you talked about YouTube earlier, and social media and the importance of how fast a good word can get out. And so that's why, we've got to walk the talk every day as leaders in our businesses to make sure that, it's not just what we speak at the highest levels, but also what happens at the ground floor at a facility at 2 o'clock in the morning to make sure that we're doing things to support those drivers in our businesses.
Yeah, being with a military background, I talk about chain of command with our team all the time, and I also have an open door policy and get lots of phone calls and emails, and wish I got more, frankly. But so having that communication, not just at the highest levels, but all throughout that chain of command, and that they also have and believe sincerely in that open door communication, and whether it's that manager at 2 a.m, like Frank mentioned, or whether it's a facility manager, operations manager, doesn't really matter, or driver manager, or even a dispatcher. There's got to be a team effort and communication permeate throughout all the organization, or it just won't work.
Yeah, good point. Great point. So we want to shift gears a little bit here because we want to kind of go broader with supply chain trends. But before we do, ELD is something we hadn't talked about in a little while on the show. And maybe if you don't have any observations on kind of how that has continued to evolve and take root, but if you do, we'd love for you to get y'all to weigh in on what you're seeing. Any thoughts on ELD?
We were an early adopter, and we're a huge proponent of ELDs as well as all safety technology that's in trucks today. So we're always looking for lane avoidance, crash avoidance, lane change, as well as front and rear facing cameras as well. Anything we can do to better coach our drivers overall to be safe.
Yeah.
So really with ELDs, for us, it's all about safety to make sure that we've got the right hours of service control and so forth.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Anything that can improve the safety and the efficiency of our team is welcomed.
Yep.
I would also say that it shines that light. You talk about warehouses popping up all over the place, all over the country.
Right.
For us to be efficient as transportation providers, those warehouses play a key role. You hear the Home Depots of the world and others, wanting to be the shipper of choice, right? And that means that when that truck pulls up, there's a lot of downtime, call it lightly, that they sit and wait. And there's been a huge debate, and I know Frank faces this, I'm sure, where the shippers say, well, it's not my fault, or no, they weren't here for 2 hours. Well, now you've got a tool with data that says, well, here's the data. This is how long our driver sat at your docks. Maybe you can't be my customer anymore because I can't afford to service you. Those kind of hard conversations are happening, but now they're data-driven because we have those tools, whether they're imposed by the government or not.
Right.
There's other plus benefits. Not as important as safety, but still those data benefits are there that we can use to have better conversations around collaboration and around efficiency is key.
That is such a great point for us, because you think about one of the things that ELDs brought into our business is the ability to proactively plan so much better, because we know where our drivers are at all times, so that we're much more efficient to get them unloaded timely, as well as to be able to have projections for updated ETAs of shipments and so forth. So it's brought up a really good importance for shipment visibility.
And that will always be important and continue to, frankly, I think, grow and important in the visibility. Logistics isn't supposed to be boring. You shouldn't be fighting fires every morning, and if you are, that's difficult. But if you can plan it out and every week is looking, that's where you get cost efficiencies and the customers are happier.
Right.
How do you get the drivers feeling good about ELD? I could see where they could feel like, and I think some do, feel like it's an intrusion, right? But how do you get them to understand the benefit of ELD?
I think it's that conversation, right? But we just talked about it's important to not just them, and this isn't a punitive tool that we don't trust them. And this is all about efficiency. It's about our industry changing and growing and evolving and becoming more technologically advanced, and they're part of that. I would say I don't think there's many left. Speaking broadly, not just my company, but many left that really are against ELDs. I think most of the ones that were pretty stalwarts against it are now saying, you won't take my books from my cold dead hands, or now saying you won't take my ELD from my cold dead hands, right? And so I don't know if you're right, Frank, your company's the same way.
Same way. It was such a quick conversation, really. And I think once they started using it and got familiar with it, and the technology is so great today, where drivers have, whether it be tablets or phones, so they can do their logs directly from there. But I think it's like any technology. The more they see the benefits of technology overall to their life and being able to be more efficient in contacting dispatchers or planning and so forth. More miles, better settlement for them. They see the benefit.
Yeah, you guys said before, deeds not words, right? It's the actions that those ELDs and the deliverable, the ROI, to speak at a business level, that those provide to those families, not just to our
Getting
company.
home.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
So, kind of following along those lines, I know Greg and I were always interested in what supply chain trends leaders especially are on their radar. There's so many. Pick an acronym these days. Whether it's machine learning or AI or blockchain, whatever it is. There's so many things that keep your fingers on the pulse of. But what is, in particular, if you had a short list of things, what are y'all tracking more than others right now across the supply chain community?
The thing for me that is super exciting is around API technology and around shipment visibility. We were meeting with one of our solid partners yesterday, Project 44 actually, and we're talking about really the shipment visibility, which is from quote to invoice. And so you think about a lot of the investments that we're making in dock automation, as well as connectivity with partners and ELDs and so forth, is that really we want to be able to track and trace any shipment in our network down to real time. And that's really where I think our entire business has gone. You think of the Uber effect or the Amazon Prime effect, where you want to see your shipment tracked or your Uber, and our consumers and customers feel the same way. So that's when I think of what's in the future of supply chain. That's what's exciting for me.
Yeah.
Visibility. Yep.
Yeah, I read an article about APIs the other day. I have to admit, being a software guy and a retail guy, having been on the retail side, I was a little bit surprised at where the industry is, the physical logistics industry is right now.
Yeah, we have
huge pushback that you get to that, right?
Yeah, we have huge opportunities for growth as far as technology advances.
But I think you've kind of reached that tipping point, right?
Yeah,
I think people, when companies like Roadrunner and TeamOne, when you start to recognize and start to promote that, then I think other companies will follow, right? You guys are influencers in the marketplace.
I would say not all. I mean, and you look back at, you talk about supply chain trends. It's been a difficult year for a lot of trucking companies that maybe didn't share that perspective and the passion that Frank has for doing the things that they're doing, right? And a lot of those companies have gone away. And there are a variety of reasons why that happens. I mean, it's a natural ebb and flow of business cycles as well. Some are more strong than others, and some can't make it, and that's unfortunate. We don't want to see anybody fail, but it's natural, right?
But that's also a motivator. I mean, other companies, smart companies, see that. The ones that barely got by on the skin of their teeth, we saw that in supply chain technology, right? Forecasting and planning technology. We saw that during the Great Recession, as everyone loves to call it. Those companies that survived came back with a vengeance, right? And newly committed to recognizing what technology efficiency can bring to you and your organization.
Yeah, and sometimes people get that, and some don't, and that's again what causes those ebbs and flows. But that's been exciting. It's been an exciting year from watching the trends. I mean, 2018 was a great year. We're not going to talk about profits and loss here, but it's been a more challenging year. The market's a lot softer broadly, not TeamOne,
right.
but broadly the markets are softer. Greater capacity, less freight to move, so pricing has become more difficult, and on and on. So, I think 2020 is going to be a lot better than 2019 was, is what the trends are. I mean, and a lot of it's impacted by the political rhetoric and, the trades, and shippers are being more conservative with their inventories, and, on and on and on down all these things that impact a simple business like trucking, to call it.
Right.
I mean, that's one of the big things.
You think of 18 and 19, the changes in the business overall, which really, to me, accentuates the need for strong technology.
Yeah.
So we become much more efficient, because we owe it to our customers and shippers to make sure we're streamlining the whole process overall and reducing our internal costs. We can always be cost advantage in the market in any of our businesses. And so typically those companies that lead in technology typically are the ones that survive the ups and the downs of any market.
Yeah, typically they're more forward thinking, right? And they're looking outside the box, whatever cliche you want to use. I mean, they're doing all those things to make sure they survive and thrive.
Yeah.
And we're at a stage with technology where we can expect it to do the things that, I sit and look at you guys around the table. We're all of the same generation, right? We expected it and wanted the same thing that the incoming generation, millennials and Gen Z, that they absolutely demand. We couldn't demand it. We would have.
Yeah.
Believe me, we would have if we could have. We couldn't demand it because technology couldn't get us there, but now technology can get us there, and it's become such an assumption that it better, right? The companies that will thrive in the future will use technology to create those efficiencies, right?
If we got another minute, I mean, one of the things that talks about when we talk about technology that's in the news, it kind of comes in waves, I think, is the automation side.
Yes.
And Frank touched on what ELDs are doing and lane avoidance and a lot of the technologies that smart companies are putting into their trucks and into their supply chains more broadly. But the conversation around taking that driver, since it is Driver Appreciation Week, and
right.
Taking that driver, and you read articles, pick on the New York Times, and said, oh, well, don't worry, the driver shortage, that's a short-term problem because these robots are going to come in and we won't have drivers anymore, and they'll be driving by themselves all over the country. And there is some truth to the automation level increasing. We talked about that. We're becoming more technologically advanced. I think it's crazy talk about having completely self-driving truck next week or next year or next 10 years. To have that to be a solution to a very complicated industry. There was a study that Google Freight did in some of their that talked about if we automate trucks completely, and they had statistics that I won't get into, but the punchline of it was if we looked at status quo and pretended like automation and self-driving trucks and more fully automated trucks weren't ever going to be a thing. And then you compare that to what it looks like, 10 years down the road. There's actually a greater demand for drivers, the human drivers, in that model, to the tune of like 300,000 more jobs. Because where the hockey stick, maybe not quite hockey stick, where the growth is really happening is in the LTL sector. It's in the last mile. It's
short
in
haul.
The shorter haul type models, and that's where I'd challenge any robot to drive through downtown Chicago, right? And then interact with a customer, as we talked about. The driving part is a small percentage of what they do, but then how does that robot interact with your customer? That's not something our customers want. So there's a place for that role. But if you're going from California through Montana to Chicago, then maybe there's a role for those more automated and more cost-effective solutions with technology.
I can see it being like harbor pilots, right, with a ship, where you have somebody who knows the navigation of this area, and I'm sure you all experienced the traffic coming here that everyone else experienced today. Today's an exceptionally bad day in Atlanta. But I could see the situation where the automation hands off to this harbor pilot, if you will, and they navigate through the city and interact with the customer, right? Do the logging or handle the manual portions of the logging that needs to occur. So.
Right. I think there's some great technology, especially around convoys, with improving miles per gallon of fuel usage and so forth. But I'm with you. I mean, anytime you think of the importance of the customer, that takes a human being to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that won't ever change.
Go ahead. I know what you want to say. Go ahead, Scott.
Until they can teach bots empathy.
That's right.
There's always going to be a place for humans. And, that's our running joke here. It was said by a former guest.
It's not a joke. It's serious.
It is serious. It is serious.
It's funny.
We apply it as a joke, but I think that the serious thing to take away from that is that we do believe in, or I personally believe in, is if you're willing to learn more and if you're willing to advance and take on new challenges and lean in to this age of technology that we're in, it's not going away. All of these developments are going to create opportunities for a lot of people. On the flip side, if you want to stay doing that one task day in and day out for 8 hours a day, it is going to get more challenging. That's the reality. That is as frank as it is. That's where we're headed. Yeah. So I'm much more, being an optimist and being the glass is half full. I'm much more excited about what it's creating for folks and how it's creating. As you get people onboarded and great talent into an organization, you're going to be able as leaders to give these folks so many more doors of opportunities to walk through. But at the end of the day, the employees have to choose and elect to walk through the door.
Yeah,
if they don't.
Yeah, I spoke at the Memphis World Trade Club a few weeks ago and was asked that question about automation. And one of the things that came up was, hey, well, this driver shortage again, automation's going to help in a couple of years. I mean, well, hold on. And then they said, okay, well, let's just believe that premise because we disagreed, right, with the timing of automation. So again, but I had the microphone, so I was able to
there you go.
be a little more persuasive. And I said, okay, well, he said, well, then, at best, the wages are going to decrease so drastically because now the the more higher paying jobs are going to be taken. I said, well, I think I'm not even a glass half full. I'm a glass fully full guy. And, I think that the onset of technology and kind of what you were saying, Scott, is from a truck driver perspective, now as ELDs have evolved, and now you've got, if let's say that truck is going to operate in some sort of semi-automated fashion 10 years from now, that driver is going to have yet another layer of responsibility and skills they're going to have to learn and be a more valuable asset to a company like Roadrunner or TeamOne, right? So how do you, and with that naturally would come a demand for higher compensation, because now they're providing even more value. That's not necessarily a trucker thing, but it will be part of the truck driver model in years
Absolutely.
to come.
It's been part of automation and innovation throughout history.
Agreed. There's always been naysayers that said, technology is going to drive the wages down, and I think history's proven that's not the case.
It has always it's always lifted human beings to do that thing that human beings are good at, that automation, whatever that innovation isn't. We saw that when you walked through the lobby here at King Plow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that replaced a dangerous and slow-paced job that human beings were doing. And what I've seen with automation is it takes the mundane, it takes the mindless, it takes the unsafe, and sometimes the really physically difficult job, and allows human beings to do what we are better at than automation is. I mean, if you look at the history of automation throughout history.
Yeah. Well, even recent
throughout history.
A recent example. We took a plant tour of a well-known $5 billion distribution organization, and they implemented a very automated picking and packing system or picking system, and they didn't lose one maintenance technician that had been on part of that facility's team. And not only did they not lose anybody, but they had to train, to your point, Paige, they had to train these maintenance technicians, which are also skills in demand. And also, speaking of transportation, that's part of the big shortage and the challenge of finding people that can. Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
But this organization, not only did it not lose anybody due to this investment in their infrastructure, they also had to train these folks on new skills and basically be able to train bots and fix bots and program bots, so that they raise their wages. So that's like getting your cake and eat it too,
Yeah.
And that's how I think part of the theme of this conversation here today, where we started, is an inaccurate message just getting out to the marketplace. Well, we've got that challenge with trucking, and we clearly have that challenge also with the technology age and automation that's going on. So, but nevertheless, and I like your phrase, Paige, you're not a half glass full, you're a full glass full. Yeah. I might steal that from you, put it on the back of the T-shirt. All right, so for the sake of time, let's keep moving right along, because we want to wrap up one of the last big questions. Y'all have already kind of touched on this
one.
Yeah. So break out your crystal ball, right, and give us your boldest, most fearless prediction for 2020, whether it's for your organization or if it's any general predictions.
So I have to start by saying, since tonight the Bears do play the Packers, that's right. A bold prediction is the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl, right?
We'll take that.
Super Bowl. Okay.
That. Hey, Bears.
I thought you were just going to say tonight, but yeah, Super Bowl. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's really, overall, I'm an optimistic person by nature. So, after we've seen the ups and the downs of the truckload market, specifically the last 2 years, I'm very positive about what's going to happen in 2020. But also, like we've been talking about, companies that invest in technology, take care of their people, and are always focused on the customer, typically they are going to weather any environment, whether it be good or bad. And I think that's where we talk a lot internally about not focusing as much on external controls and what's going on in the macroeconomic environment, but more what can we do to take care of our customers today and our drivers and so forth. And if we do those things, everything else seems to fall right in line.
Including that really important internal customer that you mentioned earlier.
Right.
Yeah. Paige.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how bold it. I kind of said it before. I agree with Frank that the 2020 economy is going to be a lot better from a freight perspective. I think it will continue to improve. It's in pretty good shape right now, in most metrics you look at. But the freight industry has got a little bit of a different take on it right now because of the soft markets, and again, comparing it to what 2018 looked like for most, created some overcapacity in the market, and that's hurt us this year across the board as an industry, shippers alike. But so I think 2020, a lot of that will ease, I think there's some things that are going to impact that too. There's granular stuff, but important. There's a new drug clearinghouse that's coming out, and some other things that are going to make it more stringent on the kind of requirements that we have to use to screen and hire drivers. So that's gonna shape the industry, I think, in a positive way,
I agree.
from a safety perspective as well as from a capacity perspective. And it allows those companies, as Frank has said, that are investing and being forward thinking and putting focus on technology and their internal customers, which again, I love that phrase, is going to allow those companies to thrive. And I think there are more companies like that out there than there are the latter. So I think 2020 is going to be a great year for the freight industry, which impacts, again, it's the common denominator of our economy overall. So that's going to be good news for all of us.
Yeah. And we all want as much good news as we can get, right? So that's
Why
a
not?
great way to kind of wrap up the meat and potatoes of our conversation here today. But let's, so y'all have shared a lot of insights from a leadership standpoint, from a certainly a trucking and supply chain standpoint. How can folks get in touch with y'all to learn more about, or to really connect with what y'all are doing? And Frank, let's start with you.
I think first and foremost is you can follow us on social media, whether it be Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter. We spend a lot of time making a lot of daily posts to not only our internal customers or external, find out what's new at Roadrunner, but also you can go to rrts.com and you can see the family of companies we have and freight. We've got a nice blog that our marketing team has put together there and so forth.
Great.
Fantastic.
Great. You don't want to give out your phone number to other companies' drivers?
Only to drivers.
Only the drivers. That's right.
That's right.
A special phone number just for them.
That's right.
Bat phone. What about you, Paige?
Yeah, simply just TeamOne Logistics. Just spell it all the way out. TeamOneLogistics.com is our website, and it's got all of our handles and social media tools on there as well, and learn more about what TeamOne Logistics does and how we partner with asset-based companies around the country.
And y'all also that regular video report that y'all do.
We do.
I think y'all release that quarterly, or is it?
Yeah, I know. Regular quarter. We were doing a monthly. It's a lot of work, but worth it. We do a
Tell us about it.
monthly, quarterly video update, workforce update, where we talk about the driver market and talk about the culture and the important things that are a lot of stuff we talked about. Talked about today.
That's such a great point. You go and look at YouTube, and where drivers, that's where they research their companies and so forth. So for you to do that's really it's a great move.
Yeah, thank you.
So you guys are doing
Cool
some
to hear the
special
stories.
things during the week for drivers, right?
We are. We're excited. We've got every day of the week, all of our service centers. I think 102 locations across the country. We've got something special either Monday through Friday. We're
Cool. Good idea.
recognizing drivers with Driver of the Year. I think we've been one of our sponsors. Goodyear is actually, we're going to give away a couple blimp rides, so we're excited about it.
Cool.
How do we sign up for that?
Dang.
You got to drive. I got to drive for Roadrunner. Okay.
Paige, this time next year, we can get you on a blimp.
All right.
right.
Cargo
Awesome,
vans count? Do cargo vans count? Hey, we're getting
If you're willing
closer.
to slap a
We're getting close.
Roadrunner logo on it,
That's
I bet
right.
it does.
That's awesome. What a great. So Goodyear blimp rides at
That's
football
cool.
games and events and stuff.
So there's, we've they're a good tire vendor of ours. So one of the, they have given away as part of National Truck Driver Appreciation Week a couple of blimp
Wow.
rides in some locations, I think Ohio and Texas. And
That's awesome.
So yeah, we're excited about that.
That
a
is
great
really
idea.
neat. Well, good stuff. We really have enjoyed it. There is so much to uncover. It's tough to capture all of this in an hour-long podcast, but really appreciate what y'all have shared here today.
Thanks.
Not only, I think, is there, at least what I've heard, Greg, not only really interesting insights from folks that are neck deep into the trucking and transportation industry, but also some really actionable ideas.
Yep.
Right?
No
Key
doubt.
takeaways.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, look, a lot of us, me included, and that I've been in retail.
Mhm.
To me, the truck driver was the guy backing my trailer in when
Mhm.
I
Or gal.
needed to get that stuff on the dock, right? So I think it's good to get a broader perspective of the role that these folks play, and I do think we all should appreciate them.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a way that we can get people on the road to appreciate drivers. When I was a kid, you used to make sure you were clear of them, and then you'd flash your lights,
Mhm.
right? And they would flash them back to let you know that you were clear of them in your rearview mirror, right?
Right.
So that you could pull on over. So I don't know if people do that anymore. I doubt it.
Think
do.
about even in the youngest, when we were kids, we would always go by and ask them to honk
Yes,
the
of
horn.
course. And you know what?
That's
the
what everyone
simplest
should
way to
do, yeah.
that. Yeah, everyone should do that.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
I thought that's where you were going with it. That's what I remembered as a kid. You know?
Yeah,
And,
yeah, of
and
course.
that horn blow was like made your day, made your ride wherever
Oh,
you
yeah.
were going.
It made their day too. You could tell.
Yeah.
We didn't have iPhones and iPads back then either.
We were actually looking up.
Something to do, yeah.
Yeah, we were actually looking up.
Well, if your millions of listeners have them all doing horn blows,
Yeah.
we could be.
Move the needle.
Yeah,
That's
man.
right.
That's
Move the
right.
needle
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I like that.
We just need to find a hashtag.
Yes.
That's right. We'll find one, believe me.
We will. We'll have to coordinate that with the publishing this episode.
Our marketing
but
guru, yes.
Great stuff here. Really appreciate the time that y'all have invested in what is really important subject matter. So really appreciate Frank Hurst, president of Roadrunner Freight, and Paige Siplon, CEO of TeamOne Logistics, spending time with us here today on Supply Chain Now Radio. Thanks to you both.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
And don't take off just yet. We're going to wrap up. Greg and I are going to wrap up on some upcoming announcements.
Oh, my.
And we've got, as always, we want to invite our audience to come check us out in person as we get out into the field, right, these different events, Greg. And and of course, our prayers and best wishes are really with the folks in the Bahamas for sure. And man, talk about some level-setting context there as the images start to proliferate out. Goodness gracious, the U.S. may well get off scot-free compared to what they've experienced there. I've got it. We were talking about something pre-show yesterday. We'd come across an article that really put something in perspective. When that storm hung out on the Bahamas for hours on end, when it was still Category 5, that is this one article. I would not have to dig this up. Basically, put that's like a 20-mile tornado staying in the same spot for hours. And so this author went on to talk about how not only the devastation, as we've seen the images come out, but how the residents aren't going to just need help and support and resources. They're going to need some PTSD training or support to deal with can you imagine, for hours on end, the winds and the debris and the destruction. It is just remarkable.
I think the Consul General of the Bahamian Consulate here in Atlanta was on the phone with her brother when the roof was ripped off his house.
Wow. Unbelievable.
And that's devastating to not only people there, but other people who've experienced that. I think the Prime Minister has confirmed that he's lost his brother as well.
Well, here's how you can help. It's one thing to be here and talk about it, but it's another thing if you've got any sense of any type of infrastructure you can donate. AllenAid.org is an outstanding nonprofit. They've been in business for years where they're helping to marshal resources across really corporate America supply chain infrastructure and apply it to these countries and these areas of the globe that are hit by all kinds of different challenges. So check out AllenAid.org, ALANAID.org. We are fortunate enough to have Kathy Fulton, their executive director, on the show not too long ago, and they're doing incredible work to make supply chain move the needle in a very meaningful way.
Yeah.
All right. So on a much, much lighter note, let's talk about some of the places we're going to be, and we hope that the hurricane. We hope we're done with Hurricane Dorian very soon, right?
Yeah.
Holy cow!
No doubt.
All right, so North Charleston next week is still on September 12th and 13th. And what conference is that, Greg?
That is the AIAG-SCAC,
Wow.
That's a mouthful, isn't it? Automotive Industry Action Group and the South Carolina Automotive Council.
You're going to get your sticker today.
I know,
Excellent
that's not bad. And future governor of South Carolina, Amy Tinsley, is the director there. I'm convinced that she can run for office.
Breaking news.
The current governor is going to be pretty upset with me. We're going to have a bunch of the companies, the OEMs that produce vehicles there. I know we're going to talk to Bosch. We're going to talk to Volvo, probably BMW, Mercedes as well, and a number of other players there in the market. And
IBM's going to make an appearance.
Yeah, IBM. That's right. And lots of vehicles. So I'm a car buff. So
all about supply chain.
Excited about seeing that.
We are too. All about supply chain quality in the world of automotive, and of course our broadcast there is sponsored by the Effective Syndicate.
Probably tell them the date.
Yes, September 12th and 13th.
Yeah, I didn't say the date.
Registration is still open, and but I think they've got. I think it's going to be one of their bigger shows in recent years. So look forward to being there.
Yep.
And then here's another neat thing. This is brand new. Spoke to him this morning. You don't know this, Greg.
Oh, my.
So the Georgia Manufacturing Summit is coming up October 9th. And Jason Moss, CEO of the GMA, and his team are expecting 1,000 people to be out. Biggest summit yet. We're pleased to be not only broadcasting live there. Greg is going to be leading the charge with some big guests, but we're going to be leading a panel session with a variety of leaders, including UPS. But Jason and GMA are offering 50 free seats to veterans.
Oh, that's right.
No strings attached. You can go to Georgia Manufacturing.
Free ticket.
Page
can get
Yes.
Yes.
Georgia, you could give it to a more
Georgia,
someone with more need.
of course, GeorgiaManufacturingSummit.com. And we've got a code here, USA Vet to get your free seat if you're a veteran. What a great
show notes.
What a great move. Yeah, we'll definitely put it in show notes. Our friends at Vetlanta are already aware of it. They're going to be getting the word out to the Metro Atlanta veteran community, and that's going to be October 9th, full day. And why it's so neat here, and we did this at the Georgia Logistics Summit, right, a couple years ago. It's so important that our veterans get out, they make connections, they build their network. They're going to get some market intelligence. They're going to probably find some folks that are hiring in this war for talent, and it's just going to be a really good day. So kudos to that move that Jason made to donate those seats to our fellow veteran community. So GeorgiaManufacturingAlliance.com or GeorgiaManufacturingSummit.com, and again, the code is USA Vet for veterans that are interested in attending for free. Okay, then tell us about Austin, Greg. What's coming up in November?
Yeah, so we're going to help keep Austin weird. November 7th and 8th, we're at the EFT Logistics CIO Forum, right? About 300 logistics CIOs there. Pretty impressive group, and it's an opportunity to rub shoulders with those folks. If you're in the technology or consulting area, it's a great opportunity to meet with those folks, understand what their strategic initiatives are for the next year, share ideas, right, and maybe even solve some problems together. So these EFT conferences are a really great opportunity to get decision makers together to solve problems.
Yep. Second installment of our partnership with EFT. We're really excited about that. They had a great 3PL and Supply Chain Summit here in Atlanta in June, and we're looking forward to being in Austin November 7th and 8th, 2019 for that Logistics CIO Forum. Supply Chain Tech, Freight Tech, Logistics Tech, hot space. Tech, yeah. Hot space
Tech,
across the end supply chain. Okay, and then we'll flip the calendar. It's hard to believe we're talking November and Turkey Day and all. We're going to flip the calendar. We're going to be at the Reverse Logistics Association Conference and Expo in Vegas in February. And then
I'm looking forward to that one.
Oh, that's been
Vegas, baby.
If you have not met Tony Sciarrotta,
you
remember him, Paige?
Oh, yeah.
He Executive Director of the RLA. The guy knows more about returns in his sleep than I will ever understand.
It's a shame he's not more energetic, isn't it?
Yeah.
He is such an incredible resource, and we've got this monthly series with him that we're already enjoying. But we'll be there in Vegas in February, and then of course Modex 2020 back here in Atlanta in March. Not only are we going to be broadcasting through the 4 days, but of course thanks to the good people like Paige Siplon and TeamOne Logistics, who are some of our earliest supporters and sponsors for the Atlanta Supply Chain Awards last year. We are going to be hosting our 2020 Atlanta Supply Chain Awards at Modex, which we're excited about, and we're close to nailing down.
March 10th.
Hopefully, March 10th.
Yeah.
We're hopefully going to be nailing down a really sought-after keynote to anchor that lunch event. So more information to come, but first off, it's free to attend Modex. So, talk about great resources. ModexShow.com. They're expecting 35,000 people here in Atlanta, and we're looking forward to getting some of what's being discussed there out across into our audience's ears. Okay, so once again, want to thank Frank Hurst with Roadrunner Freight, Paige Siplon, CEO of TeamOne Logistics, for being back on the show. Great show. We could have kept going for a couple hours, and there's too much to talk about, right?
Yeah. Well, but I think we covered it really well.
Agreed.
This is an important week, right? It's an important week for your companies. It's an important week for your drivers, and I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
Paige and I are going to have to get a ticket on the tour buses.
That's right.
Charleston, Austin, and Las Vegas.
Yeah, bring it on.
We can make that happen, not a problem.
Actually, we have our own
Also
tour
drinks.
We can introduce you to the Supply Chain Now tour van.
All right.
That's right. Newly wrapped.
Sounds interesting, but I think we'll stick with our own van. No hard feelings.
Oh boy, had the makings of a reality show there, Paige.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said we stick with our own van.
Well, good stuff. Well, again, as busy as y'all both are, and as busy as your organizations are, thanks for taking some time to stop in at Supply Chain Radio to talk about how much we love our truckers. So, Greg, anything else that we missed here?
I hope not, because I don't remember it.
I think we
there is something, isn't it?
No.
Isn't there? No, you never ask when there's not something
because you are so chock full of industry insights. I hate to wrap up any show without giving you an opportunity.
Well, thank you, but I think we've understood that this is these are valuable members of the supply chain, valuable members of society. And I really appreciate what you guys are doing and your teams are doing to to show appreciation and to lift these folks up.
So thanks for that, Greg. Spot on. And thanks to you for being here again today. But to our audience, be sure to check out other upcoming events, replays of our interviews, other resources at supplychainnowradio.com. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, all the other leading sites where podcasts can be found. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. On behalf of the entire Supply Chain Now Radio team, this is Scott Luton wishing you a wonderful week ahead, and we'll see you next time on Supply Chain Now Radio. Thanks, everybody.